I Say Blue. I am, of course, your familiar host, Chris Cichon. This week joined by Wolves Sports Director, Danny Sass. Danny.
Isn't that like an every week thing? You
Yeah.
make me seem like I'm new to this.
No,
man.
you're not
Come
new.
on.
Everybody knows who you are,
Three
Danny.
years
Sports
running,
Director.
we've been- wow,
Sports
that's
Director.
quite the
And
title.
we got a special show. Just look at us and you see we got a different attire on, a little bit fancier than usual.
You look good.
T-shirt get up.
And
Do
you
I?
thickened that chin strap up a little
Oh yeah,
bit.
I've been working on it,
this
the
is-
whole semester really,
Yeah,
just for this
that's
show.
something special
so,
right
so this
there.
is great. We still got a nice rundown.
You
Big
can't
show.
teach facial hair grooming, is the old adage that they say in the Wolves sports
Taking a
department,
class on it
so-
actually this semester.
Yep.
So learning all the
looking,
tips. But
looking really good, Chris.
big slam pack show today, Danny. You can go ahead and say Maize. I'm going to say blue, as in I got to say, my blue threads are looking way flyer than you over there in the Maize.
Well, I respectfully disagree, Chris. You can go ahead and say blue. I'm going to say Maize, and I am amazed that you didn't lead this off with something Iverson related or election related.
No, baby, I'm gonna keep
I
it
mean,
on the
it's a
fashion.
huge day in the D. It's
I'm
a
leading
huge
the
day in the
polls.
nation,
I'm
and you're
leading the
going.
polls and who looks better.
You're going with the threads. Actually, I was voted best looking YSM host of the last 3 years.
We're still looking into those.
We're
rankings
looking
to
into
make
the
sure
results
that-
and whether or
make
not
sure there
that's
weren't any
deemed
hanging
legitimate.
chads or anything.
But
let's
Chris,
get to the
before
sports.
we continue to dabble on our looks and attire, we'll actually get into some sports. Big news out of Detroit: Allen Iverson coming to the Pistons for Chauncey Billups, Antonio McDyess,
Cheek Sam.
and Cheek
Don't
Sam.
forget
If we're
about
gonna
that.
go,
That
if we're
makes
gonna
the
throw
deal.
everyone into this trade, does this make Detroit an immediate title contender or what?
Well, it doesn't make them any worse than they were when they had Billups and Dice, especially if they get McDyess back. Apparently, Dice doesn't want to play in Denver. If he comes back to Detroit, he's going to have to take a few less dollars. So if they make that happen, they got their big man rotation. And plus AI, I mean, look what you're getting. You're getting a Hall of Famer in Allen Iverson.
Okay.
One of the best scorers in NBA history. Yes, he's 33 years old. Yes, he's not what he was, but the Pistons have so much with the other guys that they're not going to need him to be that MVP that he was, 7 years ago. This is, Allen Iverson. He gives them the bona fide score that they need. And plus,
And he can still ball, Chris.
I think he can definitely, and plus I think he's underrated defensively. His whole mantra basically fits the what Joe D has created in Detroit. Hard-nosed, tough competitor. The fans are just going to love the passion that AI brings to the arena every single night, and you're going to see that on the floor. I think the Pistons are still going to have a very good season.
And Chris, this is no knock, obviously, on Chauncey Billups. You take a guy like Chauncey Billups, who, Mr. Big Shot, did everything he needed to do in a Pistons
Sad to see him
uniform,
go, too.
and
It's
he
sad to see him
obviously
go.
he made himself. He was a true Piston, if we're going to throw that term around. No knock on him, obviously, but when you see a team like Boston come in and make the moves, and you see what Danny Ainge does as a GM there, and then you see a team like Cleveland bringing in a guy like Mo Williams. Everyone in the East is building a roster that can compete come May, come June.
Yep.
Detroit's been pretty stagnant for the last few playoffs, a few disappointing seasons. They had to shake something up. Bringing in AI gives them excitement, gives them a bit of speed, it gives them a little bit of flash, gives them some
Gives them
spunk,
what they need,
gives
fire.
them another personality
Fire.
alongside Sheed. And, now they have something to be excited about. This is a team that wasn't getting any younger, wasn't getting any newer. Obviously, they're not getting any younger bringing in AI,
Right.
but not mentioned yet, this really frees up some financial flexibility now. So
Especially in a couple years.
you have AI expiring in July.
Right.
You have
Same
Rashid
with
expiring in July. That's going to open up a ton of cap room.
Over $20 million worth in a couple years, and you know who's going to be a free agent?
LeBron coming to
Dwayne
Detroit.
Wade. I mean, you can still get
that's
Dwayne
going to be
Wade,
one of
Chris
the best.
Bosh.
That's going to be one of the best free agent markets you could possibly find,
Yeah.
and Detroit now makes himself a player in that market. It's an unbelievable move if you look at it from that standpoint.
And plus, they still can win this year. That's
absolutely.
what the genius part is. They
Absolutely.
can still win this year, and they're going to be better in the future because of the deal. That's Joe Dumars.
And then obviously
for
you look at a nucleus for the future built around, Rip Hamilton, built around Tayshaun,
Rodney
built
Stuckey.
around a Rodney Stuckey.
They wouldn't make
maybe
this deal if Rodney
Jason
Stuckey wasn't the
Maxiel,
emerging
Jason
player.
Maxiel and Walter Ehrman going to get some playing time. Both of them have been playing well this
Amir
year.
Johnson's in the rotation
So,
starting.
this is a young team. It's a good team.
Yeah.
And AI gives them, like you said, a bona fide scoring threat every single time he has the ball in his hand. Playmaker.
Definitely. And Danny, we're going to shift from the court. We'll talk more NBA later, actually, in the main event, big basketball show. But it is football season.
Okay.
Big part of the football season here. Michigan football, however, not doing so well. I think you might
It's an
have read something
understatement.
about that.
Understatement in another
Understatement.
right there.
Only 2-7. Come on, only the worst team since 1962, right, Danny? How bad are they?
They're bad. Justin Siller entered the year as a third-string quarterback who'd been playing
Running back.
Chris.
I
He'd been
cannot
playing
believe
running
this,
back,
Danny.
Which completely proves, Chris, that if you stick any guy with moderate speed under center for an opposing team
Against the Wolverines?
against the Michigan
He's going to look like an All-American,
You ready
just
for
like Justin
Siller's
Siller.
numbers? 21 for
God.
34,
Stop
266
reading
yards,
them.
3 touchdowns, 15 carries,
No picks.
77 yards, and a touchdown. No turnovers, no picks. Did exactly what he had to do.
Oh, my God.
And then you bring in a guy, Corey Sheets, from my home state of Connecticut, who, with a little slice and dice action in the backfield,
Yeah.
looked like just about every other running back
Yeah.
who's run wild on the
Gave
Wolverines
up
this year.
522 total yards,
I mean,
Danny.
against Purdue, Chris.
Another game.
Against a
Another
third string,
game.
against a third string quarterback. They were outcoached. They were outplayed. They looked slow on defense. Nice to see the offense obviously getting in a bit of a rhythm. Nice to see something out of the special teams. Martavius Odom's taking the punt for the house, but I mean, this was a disaster.
Yeah, I mean, this just basically brings the inevitable, to the forefront here. It finally came true. Michigan's not going to make a bowl game this season, ending 33 straight years. They're not going to have a winning season, first losing season since '67. All that finally comes true. Before, it was almost like, that can't happen. That's not going to happen. They're going to win these next 4 games. They're even going to beat Ohio State, and they'll finish the year at 500. Now, it's
Chris, I'm going to do
there.
something I don't do very often. I'm usually a big, hold the players accountable. They're the ones on the field. They're the ones playing. But the coaching staff, in my opinion, had as much role in blowing this game as they've ever had for a Michigan team that I've watched. Scott Schaefer going with a 3-3-5 defense and taking, the best players on this Michigan defense.
They got to shake it up, though, Danny.
The best players on this Michigan defense are the line. The line and the backers.
You would think that. Have they been playing like the best?
No, but Chris, it's an undisputed fact.
I don't think you can pick a best on that defense.
This team has no secondary. When you're facing a quarterback who hasn't done a single thing in his entire career, and you opt to drop 7 or 8 guys off into coverage instead of blitzing him, you're opening yourself up to get picked apart. Second thing, I'll interrupt, just go a little bit longer to this horn, whatever you want to call it here.
Just totally no regard for the horn.
Chris, a fake punt and a hook and ladder, that's stuff that Michigan, with their backs against the wall and nothing to lose, should be doing. Instead, it happens to them.
They're not going to do anything about it.
Open up the playbook. Enough with the screens. Enough with the off-tag.
I'm tired of talking about it, Danny. Let's go on to some better football. What you got?
Better football, I believe, is played in the state of Texas these days.
Yeah.
And in the whole Big 12,
Looks
for that
like it to
matter.
me.
Texas Tech knocking off Texas. I was at that game at Big Time Charlie's. Not at that game. I was watching that game at Big Time Charlie's, thinking to myself, wow, this is football the way it's meant to be played. Texas Tech got it done. Do they deserve the number 2 ranking?
Well, I mean, it really doesn't matter. Do they deserve it? If you actually want to do the math and do how Texas got to be number 1, maybe Texas Tech should be number 1 because Texas beat number 1 Oklahoma to leapfrog Alabama, but now Alabama's number 1. So yeah, well, I just spilled the beans on that. But it doesn't matter, especially for Penn State's point of, especially from them stance. Penn State, they're going to go to the national title game if all they have to do is win out because the other teams, they're going to take care of themselves. I guarantee you, just like Texas, the schedule that Texas had, I said on this very show, Texas would not be number 1 in 3 weeks. 3 weeks ago, they're not number 1. Same thing with Texas Tech because they have to play Oklahoma State this week. Then they got to bye, and then they got to go to Norman and play Oklahoma.
Chris,
you're telling me they're going to be number 1 then?
I have a question for you. I have one question for you, okay? If either Oklahoma or Florida win their respective conference tournaments, could they jump Penn State?
No.
Why?
Penn State is in. All they have to do is win.
Okay, but you and I have seen what Ohio State has done and how they've represented the Big Ten. I mean, Chris, one thing with all this BCS mess, one thing is abundantly clear, and that is that the SEC and the Big 12 are heads and shoulders better than any conference in the nation. You'll agree with that, yes?
I will agree that the Big 12 is better than the SEC.
Okay,
by
fine.
head and shoulders,
but
Big 12 is
both
better than the
are much
SEC.
better than, obviously, the ACC, the Big
Definitely,
East, the Big
but there's
10,
still a
and
gap
the Pac-10.
between the Big 12 and the SEC, too.
Okay,
Keep that in mind, and that's why it's going to be a Big 12 team playing Penn State in the title game instead of an SEC team.
But what if Bama goes undefeated?
They're not going to. That's going to
They're
take
gonna
care of
lose to
itself.
Florida.
They might lose a game, whoever they're playing next. I don't even know who they're playing next. They might lose to Auburn. Auburn's got, what else is Auburn playing for this year? Besides maybe a bowl game, but they're having a tough season too. They want to beat Alabama. You think they don't want to ruin that for them?
And you say no way Texas Tech goes undefeated?
No, that's not going to happen. I mean, Graham Harrell, great performance. He can throw, for miles in a game. Michael Crabtree, awesome, best receiver in the country.
But hey, their defense got big.
When they play Oklahoma looks pretty darn mean and nasty after that loss to Texas.
Absolutely.
And I think they can take care of them in the trenches against Texas Tech.
But we've seen the way seasons have been absolutely, messed up, convoluted standings at the end of the season, teams jumping each other, final day of the regular season. We saw Michigan, obviously, get the short end of the stick 2 years back.
Yeah.
With Florida jumping.
That's going to happen this year. That's going to happen
something
this year.
Will happen, but obviously right now, Bama, Texas Tech over Penn State, if everything stays as is.
I got one certainty for you, Danny.
Oklahoma or Texas, Florida,
got one thing.
over a team like USC, yes, agreed?
Yeah.
USC is on the bottom.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, actually. One thing we know, in the Rose Bowl, we're going to see USC against Ohio State. We're going to see that rematch because Ohio State, they're going to win out. USC is going to win out. They got a pretty, lackluster conference in the Pac-10 this year. They're going to meet up in the Rose Bowl in the classic game, Big Ten, Pac-10, and Ohio State, Terrell Pryor, you got a chance to prove yourself that you are better than the Trojans.
I think Ohio State proved everything they needed to prove earlier in the season when they lost that game 35-3 and showed that they're
no, they got a chance to avenge that defeat. They got a chance to avenge it in the Rose Bowl, which is one of the biggest games of the year.
They showed that the Big Ten is a weak conference. I'm sick and tired of the Big Ten getting a chance on the national stage to embarrass themselves.
Well, they're going to.
And
It's the Rose
Penn
Bowl.
State's about to do it
they're
again
going
this
to,
year.
Danny.
But Chris, we're going to move on.